Hi. It's a pleasure to be here. The first time I came was many, many years ago. And of course I headed to St. Viator and, what's the other one? Fairmont Bagels, but I learned today that now they have rosemary salt bagels and chocolate chip bagels, and I'm not so sure I want to go there. But anyway, I love their bagels. And even though I think they should have salt in them, but anyway, and a little bit less sugar. What I'm going to do is sort of set the stage for all this, and I just want to thank Natalie for all the work that she has done since the time. I know she did work before she contacted me, but it's hard to put these things together, and she's done a great job, so I think we should give her a hand. Okay, so what I'm going to do is talk just for a few minutes, and if I talk too long, will you cut me off, Natalie, about what is Jewish food, basically what is Jewish food. I used to think that Jewish food started in Sinai Desert, as Jews came from the from the wilderness to Jerusalem. This was in my mind. And then I realized, wait a minute, that's not how it started at all. That 2500 BC, there was a lot of food going back and forth on the Mediterranean, in the Arabian Sea, and the Indian Ocean. And they found a cookbook that was written on 4 cuneiform tablets in Akkadian for the gods. This was before monotheism, before there was any Judaism whatsoever. And I wasn't so interested in the cookbooks, but I was interested in what the ingredients were. So one of the ingredients actually were beets, so that there was a borscht recipe in there. But they also had dill, they had nigella seeds, they had chickpeas, they had sesame seeds, the first grain oil. So if they had chickpeas and sesame seeds, what else did they have? They had hummus. But it wouldn't have been in a cookbook because everybody knew how to make it. And so I thought, what were the foods that were in the area before then? And I know that they were going a long ways from China to Cyprus because they had Chinese porcelain plates with the exact same pattern in China and Cyprus, so that there was trade going back and forth. And so I realized that that's what they ate before there was a concept of monotheism. And then I realized that, wait a second, Abraham was about, 1400 BC, about. It's not clear exactly when he was there. But anyway, he was in Ur, which was about 300 miles south of Babylon. And he and his cousins and his wife, I think of him as one of the first hippies that went to the Promised Land looking for probably, perfection. Anyway, and he was a monotheist. Remember, he took the icons that his father was selling and he broke them, but he went north. So he probably brought with him dried chickpeas. And what did he find in the land of Canaan? Who knows? There's 7 things that he found that's in the book of Deuteronomy. He found pomegranates, he found figs, he found, come on you scholars, what? Dates.
Olives.
Olives, good. Barley, wheat, and I always forget what the 7th is. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But he found all these things. And of course he probably found lentils as well. And he found chickpeas because there were chickpeas all around. They found chickpeas from 12,000 years ago in Jordan, so that the whole area had chickpeas, not just the Fertile Crescent. Anyway, so I realized that these were the ingredients, the basic ingredients. You know, he had goat, there was lamb, they weren't chickens then, but he had other ingredients too. So then what happened was, of course, then King Solomon came along. And King Solomon, I always think of as the first foodie. That's why my editor decided to call my book King Solomon's Table. He had also 700 wives, and he had 300 concubines. And he had these wives, they came from all the parts of the then known world. And so they would have brought their spices with them to the palace and to the temple in Jerusalem. And if you see, if any of you have been to places like India or Sri Lanka, and you go to some of these ancient temples, you see that for the king, he'd have his harem outside the temple or wherever he lived, or the palace. And it was, it was a way of showing his power, which of course we know with what's going on, it's still a way of showing your power. Anyway, so he would bring this food back and forth. And in fact, even somebody like the Queen of Sheba brought ingredients to him. And so we realize that not just now, but forever, there's been back and forth, and we're looking around for foods from the whole world. And in a way, it's like a bagel, Jewish food. It's been twisting and turning forever because Jews, from the destruction of the first temple, went to Babylon, so they found more of these Babylonian foods, and they went off to places like Azerbaijan, to Yemen, even before then, to places like Ethiopia, where I just visited last week. And today, Ethiopia is a totally Christian country. And I said, how come you don't allow pork? And they said, because we base it on Judaism. And you are not allowed to have pork in the country of Ethiopia. And I think this is something that people are going to start studying more and more in the future. Anyway, so Jewish food spread all around the world, and it's still spreading until today. And I think, and you can see, like here we are in Montreal, you've got the influence of the Ukrainian, the Romanian, the Monrovian. You have recipes like malia, which came from Romania, which is, how many of you have heard of malia? It's the most delicious. No, malia. Malai, excuse me, malai. It's a cornmeal mush with either cottage cheese or ricotta and eggs and sugar. It's delicious. You can get it in my cookbook, or there's a similar recipe in Marcy Goldman's, one of her cookbooks. I've never heard of it, but it's Montreal. What? It has dill in the sweet, not my recipe. Anyway. But look at the kinds of bagels. You've got the best bagels in North America, except for the salt right here. But and now we have all the Moroccans that come here, and some of the best Moroccan food is right here in Montreal. So we're always changing. So there are three things that I think are what define what Jewish food is. The first are the dietary laws. There's no question in my mind. If you take like Italian food comes from the land, one land, and it's rooted right in the land. Jewish food is rooted in the laws. Even if you don't follow the laws, in the back of your mind, you know that they're there, that it's what connects you. Just as the hymns and the foods and the music connect you to a sacred space, to a comfort space. And it was something I've been thinking about for the last 24 hours because of Pittsburgh. Religion should be something not afraid, that you fear, but something that's comforting. Anyway, so that's one thing. And I think that it's very, very true. And in a way, it has kept us together because of the Sabbath, because of holidays, that we constantly are bringing out these foods, these songs, these prayers, and it binds you together. All right, that's the one thing. The second thing is this obsessiveness about food. And maybe it's because of the laws, or maybe it's just Jews like to eat a lot. Because Italians like to eat a lot too, you know. And so do Chinese, you know, they're obsessed. You know, you've eaten one meal and then you're thinking about the next meal. But I think that it has to do with the Jews have always been in the grain business. Think of Joseph. Jews have been in the bakery business. Look at how many bakers are in Montreal that are Jewish. Jews have been, now they've been chefs, they've been vintners, they've been in the wine business, in the restaurant business, all connected to food throughout history. That's one thing. And then the third is that Jews, because we've been kicked out of so many countries, again, we've held each other together, and we've had to adapt our food to other countries. So that's how you get Moroccan Jewish food, you get Ukrainian Jewish food, you get all kinds of Jewish foods. And it came really home to me in the book I just finished, when I was in El Salvador, and they wanted to have a Jewish meal for me. And there were all 100 Jews in El Salvador. So a lot of the families came together and they brought out food. Some of them had Veronica's the way that you have them here. I'm going to Moishes tonight, and my friend who's from Montreal said, please, you've got to have Veronica's. Anyway, but they also, oh, sorry, she said I should say Veronica's, okay. Sorry, I'm from Providence, Rhode Island. Oh, and then she said they love correcting the scholar. Okay. You're the scholar. Anyway, and I'll just finish with this. That when at this woman's house, she was a German Jew, and she made this Nachtnicht. And any of you hear of it? It's like a chocolate sausage. It's really delicious, no-cook sausage. Oh, you probably know her. She's this woman is from El Salvador, but she's at NPR. She's a friend of my daughter. So, but yeah, she's in LA. Anyway, Blair. Anyway, so this woman has been making it since 1939 when she came to El Salvador. Now her El Salvadorian helpers make it because she's an elderly woman, and they make this thing. It's frozen. You don't have to cook it. Put it in the freezer, and then she just takes it out every Shabbat for her grandchildren or whoever's there, and you slice it. And I thought, wow, and now of course, it's gone out to the greater world because every El Salvadorian wants to take home this recipe that's so delicious, and it's got marzipan right in the middle of it, which I'm sure is an addition from her being in El Salvador. But anyway, then another woman had, instead of potato pancakes, she had yucca pancakes with cilantro cream. And she said, look, you know, potatoes don't grow that well in a very hot climate, but yucca does, and so it tastes better here. And that's an example of how Jews have varied their cuisine throughout history. And so that's the background that I'm going to give you, and I'll pass you back to Susan.